rent expense as a deduction from Schedule C or any other kind of businesses that are being carried out. Now, for rent, one topic is very important, which is the concept of the accounting methods, whether you're a cash basis or the accrual basis accounting taxpayer. Now, rent is always deductible on an accrual basis, even for a cash basis taxpayer. So, if you recall what we did in the accounting methods, the difference between the method of accounting being followed by the taxpayer is very important. If you're following cash basis, then anyways, all the receipts are taxable at the time of receipt, irrespective of whether you've earned the amount or not. But the problem is, if you have prepaid a particular expense, you're not going to get that as a deduction. You will have to wait till the actual incurrence has happened, and then only you'll be allowed to take that as a deduction. The rest cash basis will be followed. That means if you're a cash basis taxpayer and if you haven't paid the rent, you will not get that as a deduction. You'll have to wait till the payment happens. But if you prepay the amount, can you book a higher deduction? The answer is no. Even if you prepay, you will have to wait till the amount is incurred. So remember that in your mind. So this is an expense which is deductible on an accrual basis. Please remember that typically you pay rent for a property that you're not owning, but you're actually using that property, and the amount of rent that should be allowed as a deduction should not be unreasonable. In case of prepaid rent, I am supposed to allocate it over the tenure of lease, both for the cash basis and the accrual basis taxpayer. So this is the exception for a cash basis method of accounting. Even for a cash basis taxpayer, you cannot pre-book your rent or prepay your rent and claim a higher deduction. Please remember, it is in case if you prepay, you will have to wait for the incurrence of that expenditure. So if you've prepaid 2 years rent in first year itself, you will get a deduction only for 1 year, not for both the years. Now, this is an important exception. What it says is, see, in some rare circumstances, when the amount that you're involving does not cover more than 1 year, which is 12 months. So let's say at the end of October, you end up prepaying the entire year's rent in advance. So on 1st of October, year 2, you've paid the advance rent for the entire year. So you've paid 12 months advance that closes on. So I'm giving you this as an example. Let's say the period of rent is 1st October year 2 to 30th of September year 3. And imagine the rent is at 1,000 per month. So you would have paid 12,000 per month. So ideally, if you look at the rule, if you're a cash basis taxpayer, they say that you can only take 3 months rent, October, November, December, year 1, and the balance 9 months, you should be taking it in year 3. So year 2 and year 3. But now there's an exception. If you're talking about the rent payment of only a year, which is 12 months or less, and if I made this payment on 1st of October, but it is not going to go beyond 1 operating cycle. That means by 31st of December, year 3, you are going to foreclose that rent completely. In that case, if you have prepaid the full 12 months rent, I will allow you to take full 12,000 in the year of payment itself. This is an exception to the general rule that rent cannot be deducted till the time you have incurred that expense. So please remember, it has to be for 12 months or less contract. You have to be a cash basis taxpayer, and the full advance rent has to be paid in the year of payment, and you can get it as a deduction, provided the payment does not extend beyond the end of the next taxable year. So you're not able to extend it beyond 31st December of the next taxable year. So if you've prepaid all, you are a cash basis taxpayer, and the period does not extend beyond 31st December of the next year. If all of this is being met, I will let you take the full deduction in the year of payment itself. But please remember, this is the exception. This is not the norm. When you talk about the lease, you may have incurred certain expenses in incurring or acquiring the lease. You're supposed to capitalize all of that. So these are direct costs incurred for acquiring the lease or signing the lease agreement. You're going to capitalize all of that, and then you're going to amortize it over the shorter of the lease life or the expected life of the asset. So typically the life of the lease, because we are assuming that it's a big asset whose life would exceed the life of the lease or the tenure of the lease. Please remember, if you're constructing an asset, you're going to capitalize the construction cost and you're not going to expense it. So a rent for the construction equipment that you're using, so you're building a building and for that you're renting out a crane expenses, let's just say, that has to be capitalized. You cannot expense it as a part of the rent. So it's not capital expense. That's what they're trying to tell you. So look at the first question here. See, most questions involving rent would be centered around the concept of accrual basis. So just be very, very clear with the deductions if you're a cash basis taxpayer under the IRS rules. The call of the question is, what amount of rent expense can the taxpayer claim on his cash basis tax return? Please quote unquote, the years are very important. So pay attention to the call of the question, to the timelines. Okay, what question they're asking, what timeline that they're talking about. The taxpayer operates a wholesale distribution business. He leased a commercial storage facility in year 1 for $48,000 per year under a 3-year lease agreement. The lease began on July 1, year 1. So if you see, the lease began on July 1, year 1. So this is, let's say, December year 1. This is December year 2. And if this is December year 3, the lease will expire on June 30, year 3. So we're talking about 3 years where this is half the year, this is half the year. So year 1, year 2, oh sorry, this is year 3, and probably this is June 30, year 4, and then this is December. So this is a lease which will go for half a year here, 1 year here, another 1 year here, and then half of the year here. So it's a 3-year lease like that. The lease term began on July 1, year 1. The taxpayer paid the entire first year's rent in advance in June year 1. So this guy paid the entire 1 year advance in June year 1. The taxpayer then began making regular monthly payments of $4,000 starting July 1. So the first year's entire rent he paid in advance, and then from here he started paying it every month and continuing on the first of each month for the remainder of year 2. The call of the question is, what amount of rent expense can Owen claim on his cash basis tax return for quote unquote year 2? So if you look at this, guys, this is year 2, right? What kind of a taxpayer you are? You are a cash basis taxpayer. That means if the amount has been paid, you will have to wait for the incurrence. But if both the payment and the incurrence has happened, I will take the full 12 months rent, right? There's no point about prepaid, postpaid, nothing. The entire 12 months have incurred. So 12 months incurred, the answer is yes. 12 months paid, the answer is yes. The deduction would be for the full year, which is $48,000. So answer is A for apple, $48,000. See, if you're a cash basis taxpayer, if the amount has been incurred and not paid, you will not take the deduction. Paid and not incurred, you will not take the deduction. Paid and incurred, you will take the deduction. Please remember that, okay? Now look at this question. What is the maximum amount he can deduct as rent expense in the current tax year? So we're talking only about rent and we're talking about the current tax year. On July 1 of the current year, the taxpayer leased a commercial office space for a 2-year term at an initial rate of $900 per month. So this is again July 1, year 1, whatever year it is. On 30th of September, so July, August, September. So 30th of September, the landlord offered to reduce the monthly rent to $850 for the remainder of the lease if the taxpayer paid the balance in advance. For these, you had $900 for 3 months, that is $2,700. And since you're talking about the current year, I'm assuming this is December 31st. So September, October, November, they would reduce the amount to $850 for 3 months. The taxpayer accepted the offer and paid a lump sum of 17,850 on October 1st, assuming you're a cash basis. So this is easy, guys, right? So you've paid in advance and you've got a deduction in the rent. So the amount of charge is going to be 850 for the 3 months and 900 for the first 3 months. So if you look at it, you know it is 850 for 3 months and 900 for 3 months is 2700. So this is total is 5250. So total is 5250. I'll just deduct 2700 to know what is 2550. So what we're doing, if you have paid less and if the amount is going to be decreased, you're not going to go back and spread it evenly, because actually for the first 3 months you've paid the higher amount. So the total amount of reduction that you could get is 5250. Again, ask yourself, was the amount incurred? The answer is yes. Was the amount paid? The answer is yes. Then you get the full deduction for the amount that you have paid. So the answer becomes C. C for cauliflower or Calcutta, $5250. The third question for the day. What is the maximum amount the taxpayer can deduct as rent expense on his current tax return? On March 1st of the current tax year, the taxpayer, who's a cash basis business owner, leased an office facility under a 5-year agreement at $1,200 per month. So it's a 5-year agreement at $1,200 per month. During the year, he made total cash payments of $14,400 to the landlord, which included $2,400 explicitly designated as advance rent for the upcoming tax year. What is the maximum amount that you can get as a deduction? So typically it's simple. You've paid the full amount, because you know $1,200 per month. I'm starting from March 1. That means I'm looking at a window of 10 months. So 12,000. You've paid for the full year, so you've paid 1,200 into 12, but 2 months don't follow in this year. They follow in the next year. So I'm going to ignore the 2,400 as the advance, because ignore $2,400 of advance. And the deduction that you get is only the amount for 10 months and not for 12 months. Okay, so as I told you, 2 questions. Was the rent incurred? The answer is no. For 10 months, yes. For the balance 2 months, no. Was the amount paid? For the first 10 months, yes. For the next 2 months, yes. So this deduction allowed. For the first 10 months, yes. For the next 2 months, no. Okay, so keep that in your mind when you're doing this. This is exactly what is termed by the method of accounting, which is the accrual method, which is the cash method of accounting and the deduction for the expense thereof. Now look at the next question. How much of a rent deduction will the taxpayer be allowed to claim in year 1? So we need rent and we need year 1. See, in any EA question, or any question for that matter when it comes to MCQ in the US, the way you interpret the question is very important. So go slow when you're reading the call of the question, because if you make a mistake here, you will end up choosing a wrong answer. And the worst part is, whatever is the wrong answer, you will see it as an answer option in the 4 options. Okay, so be very, very careful about reading the question well. The taxpayer, who's a cash basis business owner, leases an office building at a monthly rate of $2,000 beginning July 1, year 1. So this is July 1, year 1. And just a day before, on June 30, year 1, he pays an advance lump sum payment of $24,000 to cover the last 6 months of year 1. So this is December 31st, year 1, and the first 6 months, that means June 30, year 2. So typically, what is this? If you look at it, this is a standard case. We are going to have a 1-year rental contract, and The 1-year rental contract would be at the rate of 2,000 per month, which is 24,000 per annum. They're asking you how much of the deduction can you take for 31st of December. Now you know that you are a cash basis taxpayer, but you've prepaid the rent, so ideally you should get only 6 months rent, which is 6 into 2,000, which is $12,000. But in this example, we know there's an exception. What did that exception say? If you prepay the full rent in advance, and if the rent does not exceed 12 months, and the end of the closing period does not fall beyond 31st December, that means close of the next tax year, you can claim the full amount as a deduction the year one itself, provided you've paid it in advance. So this is that classic exception criteria that we were talking about, and all the criteria for the exception are met. Yes, you're a cash basis taxpayer. Yes, the lease is less than 12 months time. Yes, I've prepaid the full amount. And yes, the amount of payment does not extend beyond 31st December of the next year. So in that case, I will leave the $12,000, which ideally is a general rule, and I will take the full prepaid rent of 24,000 as a deduction. Why? Because it fulfills the criteria for the prepaid to be taken as a complete deduction in the first year itself, in the year of payment itself. So if you look at it, you can cross-reference this and you can say this is Pixar 4, because this is a question that explains this provision really well. Okay, that's about it. So we've completed rent. Understand the provisions really well, bear it in mind, and then see you for the next topic.